Chapter 16. Master had me sit on the couch the moment we made it back into his room. I guess he wanted to get this done as soon as possible. He took the supplies he got into his bathroom before returning with the only 3 syringes that already had something in them and a bandage. According to your records, you missed the shots you were supposed to get when you were 12. I stared at the needles as he approached, my stomach turning a bit. Oh, is all I responded. He glanced at me from my lack of a response. You sound nervous, he said as he sat beside me. I watched as he organized the things on the coffee table. I am. Why? I toyed nervously with my pinky finger. I haven't really had the best experiences when it comes to needles, I admitted quietly. Nico picked up the first syringe, looking over it before taking off the thing that was covering the needle. What, did Dr. Marshall not do it right or something? He asked. I shook my head, growing more nervous as he extended my arm. And no, he was fine, but the pet master wasn't exactly the nicest when he gave them to us, I said. Master paused inches from my arm, his eyes furrowing. The pet master would give you guys shots? I nodded again, shuddering at the memory. For what? I shrugged. A lot of things. Sometimes to make us sleep, sometimes to make us heal faster after he punished us so someone would buy us, sometimes he'd put a certain drug in us just to see how we would act. I paused for a moment, he wasn't gentle when doing it either. Master flicked the tip of the needle before he let out a long breath. Pet masters have always been stupid. He mumbled before lining up the needle with my bicep. I found myself holding my breath as he pushed the needle into my skin. I was surprised that it didn't hurt nearly as bad as I thought it would. It still hurt a little, but it was a pain I could deal with. Apparently Master found my reaction to be a bit amusing. He removed the needle from my arm, setting the syringe on the table and picking up the next one. He froze for a moment as he spotted the small drop of blood rising from my arm. I was about to say something, but he just shook his head and carried on with the other shot. I hadn't seen him drink blood of any kind since the night he drank from me, and knowing what I do about vampires, that can't be good. Maybe he hasn't been feeling well lately? No, if that was the case then he probably would have been drinking more blood. I didn't even notice he was done with the second syringe and was already doing the third. Again, he was staring at the blood on my arm, hungrily. It was almost like he was fighting to taste it. I looked down in nervousness as he removed the last needle from my arm, proceeding to cover it up with the bandage as if what I just saw didn't happen. See? That wasn't so bad, right? He said as he got up and took the empty syringes into the bathroom. I just watched as he did so, looking down at the bandage on my arm. Yay. Master returned into the room, running a hand through his hair. He's going to suck me dry sooner or later if he doesn't drink from something soon. Nico? He lifted his eyes to meet mine. Again, I felt nervous under his gaze. You haven't had any blood in a while, I said. Master just looked at me before walking to his desk. So you noticed. His voice was plain. It gave me no indication as to why he was doing this. Yes, I started. Are you okay? He seemed surprised by my question. Yay. I'm fine. The blood moon is in a week, so I've been trying to wean myself off of it so I won't be so bloodthirsty. He said casually. My eyes widened at his response. A vampire, trying to wean himself off of blood. That's physically impossible. They need blood to survive. He of all beings should know that. In school, they would teach us that a vampire usually could only go about 72 hours without blood before they instinctually started hunting for it. That was still in another 24 hours, but still. Chapter 17. I often found myself sitting on the windowsill, staring out into the world, now being one of those times. The moon was shining extra bright it seemed tonight. It was lovely. The night breeze felt nice on my skin swell. Master had allowed me to open the window before he left. He said that he had a delivery that needed to be picked up. I've been hoping that he would pick up some blood while he was at it. His 72 hours were almost up. I let out a long breath, scooting closer to the edge, letting the faint sound of the rustling leaves below fill my mind instead. I swung my legs over the edge, letting them hang over a height that would no doubt lead to my demise. Not that it really mattered. Pretty much everything around me could lead to my demise. I mulled that thought over for a minute, the constant thought returning to me, asking myself how much time I really had left. Honestly, I've been alive here longer than I had initially thought that I would, but that luck wouldn't last me forever. Was it even luck? If it wasn't, then what else would it be? Do you plan on jumping? Master's voice sounded behind me, startling me since I didn't even hear him come in. I quickly turned my head to see him shutting the door behind him, one of those large recyclable shopping bags in one of his hands. No, I replied, slowly bringing my legs back into the room. Good. He started as he sat down on the couch that was partially facing me. I didn't think I had made your life that bad. I just blinked at him. I don't think anything would bring me to do that to myself. I swore to myself a while back that I would live as long as I possibly could since my family couldn't. Do some pets jump? Master rested his feet on the coffee table. Yay, sometimes. There's a reason that most of us keep our windows locked. He said. I can't blame those pets. With the way most of them are treated, I kind of expected it. Yet he trusted me enough to not only open the window but leave me alone while it was open. Strange. Master began looking into the bag as the room fell into silence, apparently done with that conversation. The slave finally got what I had asked him to get. I guess the store in town didn't have everything I was looking for, so he had to order it from someone else. I swung my legs over the other side, so I was facing him. What is it? I asked. He glanced up at me before tossing the bag to the other side of the couch. Come to find out. It's yours. My eyes went wide for a long moment, flickering from the bag to Master. Why would he get me something? More importantly, what would he get me? I slowly slid off the windowsill and made my way over to the bag. Master just watched me from the corner of his eye as I crawled onto the couch, so I was in front of the bag. I cautiously lifted the bag so it was facing me. My mouth fell open as soon as I spotted the thing inside. I carefully pulled out the large sketchbook, admiring the black leather cover and the silver binding. Holy crap. The ones I would get as a child were barely even as big as my hand, but this. I couldn't even think of how to describe it. My fingers ran across the soft paper before something else in the bag caught my attention. There was more. I peered into the bag again to find a whole variety of brand new drawing supplies. Different kinds of pens, pencils, acrylics, colored pencils, and even watercolor paint and brushes. None of this stuff looked cheap either. I was at a loss for words. I was at a loss for everything. He got all of this stuff. For me? Master leaned forward and removed his feet from the coffee table, causing me to force myself back into reality. I looked towards him, mouth still agape. How much was all of this? Master just shrugged. Does it matter? He asked plainly. I turned my head back to the sketchbook, absent-mindedly tracing its front cover. Why? I questioned. He rose a brow like the answer was plainly obvious. You have talent, Chloe, you should embrace it. His words somehow made me even more. Chapter 18. His room was dark. That was the first thing I noticed. The second thing I noticed was the size of the room, how it was pretty much exactly like Master's except for the placement of his furniture. The last thing I noticed was Doe sitting in a cage in the corner of the room, her eyes wide and fearful as she stared at me, like she was begging me to leave. Xander closed the door, cutting off most of the light that was entering into the room. I could barely see anything more than 3 feet ahead of me. I took a long shaky breath as I turned towards Xander, freezing under his suddenly confident gaze. His mossy green eyes shone through the dark as all vampires' eyes did. His familiar grin made a quick appearance, instinctively making me take a step back. The slim hope I had of those files even existing quickly disappeared. What have I done? You know, Chloe, he started, taking a slow step towards me. I never really understood why vampires should have to drink blood from a glass when we have perfectly capable humans living in our presence. My breath hitched at the air around me started to feel thicker, making it more difficult to breathe. I stepped back as he took another step forward, my heart thundering in my chest. It's always seemed like a lost cause to me, you know? I mean, why should we drink garbage when we could feel the rush of something alive every time? My chest was beginning to hurt. But, I guess it makes some sort of sense. I guess not being able to drink from my own pet has enlightened me on that. He chuckled softly. It still tastes like trash though. A sharp gasp ripped from my throat as my back hit the front of his bed. To be completely honest with you, I'm sick and tired of drinking that shit. But still, I had to follow the doctor's orders. He paused once he was right in front of me, greedily staring down at me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he say I could get what I wanted from one of my friend's pets? He looked at me like he was waiting for an answer. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. And that, dear, he leaned down a bit, lifting my chin up with his finger, is why you're here. Greed flashed behind his eyes as his grin grew enough to flash one of his fangs. I didn't even have time to react before he grabbed me and the world became a blur. I found myself lying face up on his bed, my arms tied above my head by something already connected to the bed frame. Panic and fear exploded in my head at the same time as I struggled to get out. This was exactly how I imagined having a master would be, but now that it was actually happening, I just wanted to curl up and rot away. He wasn't even my master. Xander's chuckle brought my attention back to him. I could see his eyes near the foot of the bed, like he hadn't moved at all. It's oddly interesting seeing something other than dough in that position. He noted. I was terrified. The look in his eyes told me that he wouldn't hesitate to kill me if I upset him. And the tone of his voice told me that he couldn't care less what would happen to me. I silently prayed that somehow, Master would get me out of this. That something would get me out of this. Xander seemed to get bored of the silence and slowly began stalking his way into the bed. My body froze against my will as he crawled over me, trapping my body under his. He seemed amused by the fact that my body was shaking in fear. You look like you want to say something, dear. There were many things I wanted to say. I wanted to scream for someone to help. I wanted to beg Xander to let me go, but I don't feel like the words would leave my mouth. Please, was all that came out. Please don't. I begged, knowing full well that it wasn't going on work. Xander's smirk just grew as he leaned down towards my ear. Go ahead. Beg and scream all you want. They made these walls thick for a reason. I could tell that he liked the fact that tears fell down my face. I couldn't get out of this. Master. Wouldn't want this, I said quietly, turning my head.